it becomes affected by our environment. And of course, as we know, the cortex is the last to be developed, and approximately age 25, 24, 25, depending on how we do it. Again, which means that is the most affected by the environment. And yes, we come in with DNA, which is our basic structure, but keep in mind, DNA is not an absolute structure. It is the blueprint that we are given. How tall, what color hair, we're given a blueprint. But just as any contractor, they take the blueprint and don't always build it exactly the same. And even in the body fluids affect the replication of cells. And so every cell is not always duplicated the same because they become affected by our environment. So we say that, we are maybe 50% DNA and 50% environment. But when you stop and think, but so was our parents, so was our grandparents, great-grandparents, and on back. So the DNA gets affected all the way down. So one of the most important parts, the most important thing here for me to share is that there at the center bottom, you have the emotional stimulus. Absolutely every bit of information enters into our sensory thalamus, which is that center brain first, then to the amygdala, then slowly up to the sensory cortex. So we get these impulses, and the amygdala is our protector. And way back when we were deciding whether it's the saber-toothed tiger or us that was going to have a meal, the amygdala was very, very important. It warned us, it kept us safe. And whereas today we really don't need quite as much protection that the amygdala still wants to give it. It's the disciplinary parent, shall we say. So the amygdala is constantly controlling us. But the sensory, and it will respond instantly, as opposed to the sensory cortex, which takes at least a minimum of another second before it responds. So with that in mind, somebody had asked about epigenomics. And epigenomics sounds like a difficult, fancy term. When we break it down, EPI means outside, external. Genomics comes from Genesis or beginning. So what is the external effect on our beginning or on our DNA? And one of the things that strongly affects is the myelin or the myelination. And why does that matter? As my last professor was talking about, what's the difference between a gorilla and a human? Why are they in the cage and we are on the outside of the cage? They are bigger, they are stronger, they have a much bigger brain, they're protected by fur to protect them from more environment than us, but they're inside the cage, we're on the outside. That difference is myelination of every neuron, which is your coding, which is your protection. And the more and better myelination, the better protection and the more efficient our neurons become, and we think better. But as we damage our myelination through physical habits, bad eating, or smoke in the air, by the way, today Denver is rated the dirtiest city in the world because all of the smoke is gathering in Denver. That's going to affect our myelination if we went outside and exercised. So all of the things affect myelination, and we want to take care of it. So why should we care? I had sent some forms which you may or may not have and want to refer to because I just want to make this conversational. We want to talk about the three parts of charisma. So what is charisma anyway, and why should we care? Charisma is that ability to have people want to hear what you have to say. it's people want to care. They want to connect with you, or they want to hear you. You become a little more powerful in other people's minds. So let's start with presence. What is presence? Presence, again, as I said, that ability for the other person to know you're 100% there. Albert Moravian is considered the guru on body language, has done more actual research on body language than anybody else. Many, many people have talked about the importance of body language. Even Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson said, if the words say one thing and the eyes say another, I will take the message of the latter. So we've known about that. But why is that? Very simply, we have been upright for 2 million years by most anthropologists. We've really been talking about 3,000 to 4,000 years. So our evolution has taught us to watch body language. And so body language becomes far more important in our messaging. So body language is 55%. The physiology is 55% of all of our communication. The second part, tonality, becomes 38%. Am I the only one here that's had a mother that said, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, go to your room? You know, I told you I loved you. Now, not terribly effective in that fashion. So our tonality is 38% of our communication, which leaves 7% for words. And where do we spend our time? Now, this is probably not true. If some good friend asks what time it is, this doesn't hold true. But if then they follow up with, well, how do you feel about that? Yes, it becomes true. So any conversation beyond the most trite, those three elements play in hand. 55% of our communication is through our body, which means congruency is very critical. What is congruency? It is all three languages speaking the same. Our body is saying the same thing as the tonality, the same thing as the words. And that occurs through congruency, through believing your story. Do you really believe your story? Is the amygdala protecting us and getting in our way? Is our body saying the same thing as our feelings, our emotions? How is our eye contact? We talk so much about eye contact, and I don't care about eye contact. What else do they say about the eyes? It's the message of the soul. And I want to connect with the soul. In public speaking, we talk about the difference between shotgun and real eye contact. Sometimes you'll see somebody talking, just looking at a broad audience, just generally looking out. Yes, they have eye contact, but they're not connecting with the soul. If you do public speaking, you want to finish a thought, finish a sentence in somebody's eyes. Finish that thought, and then that creates an anchor with that person. So we look at the color of their eyes, connect with their eyes. And since Gary paid me so much for this, I'll give you another little technique, which I find interesting. You won't hear neuroscientists talk about this a lot because they tell you the science of the brain. But I have read in many, many places, keeping in mind the occipital lobe of our brain, the main part of our brain that we hear with or see with is in the back of our head. Our eyes cross over. Our left brain goes to the right side of our left eye, our left eye goes to the right side of the brain, the right eye goes to the left side of the brain. So if I want to connect with you emotionally, I will look into your left eye and I will focus on your left eye. That's the emotional connection. But if I want to connect with you logically, I might spend more time looking into your right eye. When you begin to look at, where do you look at somebody in the face? Quite often it's in the nose, top of the nose. begin to look into the eyes. You will begin to connect deeper with the soul. Attire is important. In early years, in the very early 70s, I started my boat dealership as a mechanic. I was a mechanic as a kid. And I learned the mechanics, and I started it before I went into sales. So I was a mechanic, but I was also in the Phoenix Symphony. So I spent my days in greasy blues and my nights in tuxedos. But I've always liked to eat decently. I'd start early, I'd work late, and so I wanted to go sit down and have a sit-down lunch and be served for lunch. So I would go in my greasy blues. Now, I would never go if I was truly greasy. And I would go to decent restaurants, certainly not the fanciest, but I would go to a sit-down restaurant. And I always noticed this went on for years upon years, and they would always seat me towards the back of the restaurant. And I never felt that was a conscious intentions. If they sat me by a wait station, I would ask to be moved. They'd very kindly move me, and they were always very kind to me. But I noticed that I was set in the back. But if I was in my tuxedo on the way to somewhere else, I was always sitting in the front. So look at it from both directions. How do we interpret people by what they wear? How are we interpreted by what we wear? Attire is critical on how we look. There's a lot to that on the color we wear and different things, but be aware that attire is critical on that connection with the individual. Now, when we talk about power, the perceived ability to affect the world around us, we've heard many times that first impressions are made in 7 seconds. What we know now in the brain, in 40 milliseconds, the amygdala will decide if that's a positive face or a negative face. So you are making that first impression in 40 milliseconds. And 40 milliseconds is less than 1/2 of 1/10 of a second. So we are making judgments about others long before we're consciously even aware. And advertisers used to know this. Fortunately, there are laws against what we called in the 70s subliminal messaging or subliminal advertising. Because if you went to a theater and they would flash a picture of popcorn and the Coke on the screen for literally 1/2 of a second, your subconscious would see it, your conscious would not see it. But you're sitting there and they're flashing that and you're not seeing it. But suddenly you have this strong urge to go get up and go get a popcorn and Coke. In television in the 70s, your auto industry would flash a picture of a Chevrolet, say, for 1/2 a second or less. And so that made that strong impression on you, but you were not aware you were seeing that. They did outlaw that. It became illegal. It's called subliminal advertising because the subconscious brain will recognize a positive or negative face in 40 milliseconds. The conscious brain takes as much as a full second to catch on. So what is that power that we have? The mind-body connection. One of the largest challenges to that power of perception is very simply the lack of self-esteem, the self-image. You know, they say over 78% of the world's leaders suffer from what is referred to as the imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome is that syndrome where, when will they find out what I really don't know? When will they find out I'm really not this expert? Albert Einstein was very guilty of that. He suffered from the imposter syndrome. He was starting out as a mail clerk, and when will people find out that I'm really not this genius that everybody perceives that I am? So how many of us live with that level of imposter syndrome? When will others find out? Well, to get rid of that, One of my favorite gurus is an Amy Cuddy, and she says, you fake it till you make it. You don't know. You fake it until you become it. The standard line we've always said to ourselves, fake it till you make it. But the truth is, fake it till you become it. So in your mind, I want you all to go to the kitchen, get a lemon. You get a lemon and you feel the surface. Can you feel the texture of the surface? And now cut that lemon in half. And you look, you see the juices, you see a few nuts there on the edge. Now the fun part is to lick that lemon. How does it taste? Did any of you taste the lemon? You taste the bitterness? Do you taste that bitterness in your mouth? How many of you have ever gone to the theater? You've laughed, you've cried, and yet you know there are but actors up on the stage acting out. This is called the placebo effect. The mind cannot tell the difference between reality and fake. So the fake it till you become it is a real way of overcoming the challenges. Because what your mind believes, it manifests. We live, 100% of our emotions is expressed 100% of the time on our physiology. The importance of congruency. 100% of our emotion is expressed 100% of the time on our physiology. The best gamblers of the world will always wear dark glasses because the muscles around the eye, you cannot control. And you cannot be responsible for every muscle in your body. So the importance of believing your message and believing how you feel inside and expressing that. So that's the placebo effect. Fake it until you become it. So think yourself to health. Think yourself to happiness. One of the techniques we talked about last week was that using that thought of just think the word stop. Whenever you hear yourself negating yourself for any level, at any reason, think stop, because that consciously takes you into your cortex and you say, no, wait a minute. No, I can do this. I do have a lot to involve. So one of the importance of power, obviously, is size. I have down here, size matters. And that's important to me. And you probably are not aware that I am height challenged, shall we say. 14.5% of the US are over 6 foot, yet over 60% of all corporate presidents are over 6 feet. In one of Malcolm Gladwell's book, he did a whole chapter on why we have so many bad corporate presidents. The good news for me is there has been no research that has anything to do with IQ and height. So I feel better already. But according to Malcolm Gladwell, the reason we have so many bad corporate presidents, over 14.5% of us are over 6 foot, yes, 60%. So height matters. So how do we get that height? Once again, it's an attitude, it's a concept, it's a perception. And each of us know that we have a cable in our chest that we pull up. Stand like the 5-star general. Walk into the room the first time like the 5-star general. So what happens when you become the 5-star general? Where do the shoulders go? Shoulders tend to go back. Head goes up, chest comes out. You see all of them stand with their hands behind their back. And what does that do? That gives you that projection of the strength. Gorillas, the male gorilla that wants to be dominant, that he pounds on his chest, that creates that size. So create that size, if nothing more than in your mind. Again, the Amy Cuddy talks about being the Wonder Woman. If you stand as the Wonder Woman, when you see people running across the finish line, you see them immediately go with their hands in the air. Let me do another thing. All of you right now, tilt your head back, and in that head back position, say to yourself, I feel awful. And now look down and say, I am so happy. And what I want you to do is sense the challenge that makes. The mind and body is one. So we can think ourselves to health. We can think ourselves to happiness through these techniques that we talked about last week. So if you stood this way for a minute, if you're going to go in front of a difficult audience, go somewhere and hide somewhere and just stand like this, you will notice a major change in how you feel. It's hard to feel bad when you're standing like this. It certainly is easy to feel bad standing like this. So the shoulders as they move forward and we get crouched over, which is the way we live at our office desks and talking. And I still find myself putting my hands around my chest. Why do men do this? Why do people do this? And of course, it's that feeling of wanting to protect ourselves. I want to feel safe, and I want to hug myself to protect myself. I want to crawl back into the womb to feel safe. But when we open our body language, we automatically feel more open. So keep that open feeling. And like I said, before going into a presentation or a difficult environment, if you just stand in that, or again, the hands on the hips, stand like the Wonder Woman, you will begin to feel that. That will change. The mind and body are one. Talk a little bit about warmth. I love this saying, which is maybe a little strange, but to understand music, you must listen to it. But as long as you are thinking, I'm listening to music, you're not listening to the music, by Alan Watts. And the reason I chose that is about 2 or 3 years ago, I was going through and I packed up about 5 big boxes of books that I don't feel I any longer need. I either haven't learned it or I've already learned it, but it's too late for that book. And I realized I had about 6 or 7 books on how to listen. And they were the 14 rules of listening. They were the 7 rules of listening. I was in Toastmasters and had a special class, the 12 rules of listening. And I got to think, when I'm in front of that person that jumps in front of me with a "Don't Tread on Me" t-shirt, what's the first rule? Which rule should I pull out and use? When I'm thinking about thinking, I'm not thinking. So how do we listen? What is important? Remembering, and so I use the technique, it's a formula that I refer to, RFD2L. RFD2L. All we have to do is just relax. Then focus on that person and have a desire to learn. And I thought about that, and I've been using that, and I did a little research. And I've had just enough acting classes to be a little dangerous. And acting for years was teaching you how to act the part, act to be a different person you are. And it wasn't until the mid-60s, a gentleman by Lee Strasberg came up with what's referred to as method acting. And he taught you to become the part. So after his classes, if a woman wanted to act a part of a prostitute, she would go hang around prostitutes. Who was it? There's a famous actor who was going to play a part of a taxi driver. He actually took a job of a taxi driver. How do you become that part? And there's 4 basic rules, but only 2 that are pertinent to us here. The first 2 rules of becoming a method actor, to become the part, first rule is to remove tension and be a blank slate. Remove tension. Sounds like relax to me. So remove tension. One of the, and last week we talked about several different ways of the tight muscle, relax, breathe in, etc. The simplest way when you're in front of somebody and you want to remove tension, feel your toes. Just stand there and suddenly feel your toes. Are your toes comfortable? Can you wiggle your toes? What am I doing? And just don't do that very long, otherwise it becomes obvious. But what have I done in that second or 2 seconds? I have just explored my entire body for where the tension is. Release that tension. Listen with the blank slate. Empty that cup. Be the blank slate. Be the microphone on the wall that has no emotion. Be the screen on the wall that does not motion. And this is where the mindfulness comes in. How well can we close down the mind? Because we live with the chattering monkey mind, constantly going, judging us, criticizing us, or criticizing the other. We live with that monkey mind going all the time, so quiet that monkey mind. That takes practice. I went a little bit further, and another one of my gurus in life is Carl Rogers, great psychologist of the 60s and 70s. And he was talking about the importance of how to be a good therapist. So Carl Rogers was teaching the other therapists how to be a therapist. And he came up with 3 points that are essential. The first one being you've got to have empathy. Makes sense? Second one is congruence. Where have we heard that before? Then the third is UPR, which stands for unconditional positive regard. And how do you develop that unconditional positive regard? And you do that again by using the formula RFD2L, or the method acting, remove tension and be that blank slate and be deliberate. Be conscious, be in the moment. One of the greatest challenges to all of this is, we talked last week a lot, and we'll talk this week. We live 98% by habit. 98% of our life is by habit. We live 98% in the limbic brain, in that middle brain. It's the only way we could play a musical instrument or play a sport. You don't think about it. You drive, you get in, drive a car, you turn the key on, and we live by habit. And we talked last week about losing car keys. Am I the only one that's ever lost car keys and have to hunt for the car keys or glasses? Am I the only one that's had to chase glasses or things? And we do that, again, because we are living in the subconscious, the unconscious brain. As I mentioned, we come in the house and the phone rings, and we throw the keys and we run over and grab the phone. And then the next day when we go to get our car keys, we have not made the mental impression where we set down the keys. We go back to where we always find them, but they're not there. But anytime you place anything, if you take that 1 second and think, I'm placing my car keys here, I'm placing my glasses here, make that conscious connection, you will have that ability to remember. We lose things, we forget where we put things because we do it in an unconscious behavior. I pick up tools and I use tools. And I've developed my habits of setting all of the tools that I'm using in a specific place and consciously remembering. The technique works. It truly works. It makes a difference. And if you can just take that split second to consciously think, I am placing this item here, you will, when you go back, that will come back to you, most likely. The reason I make a point of that is that's also how we listen and how we communicate. Because we listen with our friends, we gather with the friends, we talk about gathering with birds of a feather, we live with birds of a feather. So we talk with our friends by habit in a certain pattern. We recognize our friends. Hi, how are you today? Great, how are you? You know, we know these routines and we are very sensitive with this. Suddenly their tonality is different. We automatically say, hey, what's wrong today? So we are conscious of those, but we are living by habit. And we are consciously communicating by habit. So we listen, and we listen outside of our friends the same as we do with our friends, because that's the way we have taught ourselves to listen. The time when we're introduced to a new friend, we're trying to remember their name. We're trying to learn, we want to get to know them, or we've been introduced to them and they're at an event and we want to at least remember their name later. How do we do that? And of course, we do that by bringing ourselves into that moment. Be there, be conscious, have the desire to learn their name, have the intent, focus on that, be that blank slate and let that new knowledge enter in. Don't listen with our full cup, which we spend our day. We live with a very full cup. I don't need any more knowledge, I'm happy. No, empty the cup so we can listen and recognize the fact that we are listening with the same habit that we always listen with our good friends. We have to step out of that. That's the importance of these simple little techniques. That's, I use the RFD2L. Okay, no, Jim, relax, focus, and have an intent to learn. When we are with our friends, it's not uncommon to interrupt. In fact, when you're in a group of friends, you almost have to interrupt to get your point across. Am I right about that? Maybe I'm not. Maybe you're unique. But we have lived and amongst our friends, we have a style of a level of interruption that is quite acceptable. But again, that becomes a habit. So be careful of that habit when we're attempting to meet a new person. I talk a lot about mirroring and matching if we want to really connect with somebody. And mirroring and matching is nothing more than recognizing the person that we are most comfortable with is that first person we see in the morning in the mirror, ourselves. When we do meet somebody new and are introduced, we begin to immediately ask questions, struggling to find commonality. So we are looking for commonality. Oh, you like your snow skiing? I love snow skiing. Where do you go snow skiing? And then we talk about things we have in common. And as we get to know a person, we might reach out from that point, but the immediate thing is to look some level of commonality. So how can we do that in that split second before we even consciously are there? And it's called mirroring and matching. Mirroring the body language. If they're sitting back, sit back and relax. If they're leaning forward, lean forward, not in the exact duplicate, but be similar in the body language. Move as they move. Listen to their tonality and match their pacing. Are they a highly visual person talking way before they're seen? Do they tend to be the visual person that talks in a very moderate, knowledgeable tone? Or are they the kinesthetic, the thinker in life? And let's step into their world for at least that initial moment. So be aware of their tonality, but also what else are we doing at that same time? We are focusing on them. So focus on their subtle languages and subtle tonality, subtle pacing, and let's mirror and match if we are interested in connecting. Once we make that connection, then it's easy to move away into another direction that we want to go. But that mirroring and matching is hugely powerful way to connect with people immediately. And I would advise you the next time you're having a social event when we get out and meet people again, try that. Be consciously aware of the mirroring and matching. Step into their body language, step into their tonality, and watch the difference it can make. It's a powerful tool. One of the most powerful things in the world that I'm working on myself, I'm very good when I do public speaking. I'm introduced. I walk out in front of the stage and I just look at the audience for at least 2 seconds. I'm very comfortable doing this now. So why on earth would I just walk out in front of the audience and stand there quietly and do nothing for 2 seconds? In those 2 seconds, I'm doing 100 different things. In those 2 seconds, I will change your brain completely. How did I do that? And I mean completely, in 2 seconds. And I will do that because I walked out, I was just introduced, I'm a speaker, I'm supposed to speak, but I don't. And that immediately takes you out of the limbic, normal, average way of thinking every day. Okay, he's a speaker, he's going to come out and start talking, but I don't. And I said, wait a minute, what's going on? Why isn't he talking? And the attention it brings. And of course, for me, the speaker, I am anchoring myself. I'm feeling comfortable with the floor. And I'm also looking at the body language and looking at the audience and connecting with the soul of the audience. So I make that immediate connection. I have gotten them out of the normal. They are ready to listen. And now, theoretically, I will do a powerful opening. But how do we use this on a day-to-day? The person that masters holding 2 seconds before you respond to somebody's question will have the power. Stop and think of the characteristic you have most respect for, the people that you have most respect for. Do they pause before responding? What are you doing by pausing before you respond? You're telling them what you have to say is important. Let me think about that. Let me ponder and let me prepare an intelligent response. Because most of us have prepared a response prior to them finishing their sentence, right? Am I the only one? But if we can develop that habit of pausing, people will look, they startle because, why are you being so quiet? When you do talk, be careful because people will listen. So that power of being quiet, that power of pausing tells them they're important, tells them that you are thinking about it, A, and B, and you are able then to prepare a logical response to their question. So that ability to pause before responding makes all the difference in the world. And I put down, find something you like in an individual to make that connection. Because sometimes, for me, if they're wearing a "Don't Tread on Me" shirt, I'm not real happy with that. And so but I get through it and I can communicate very well with that person because I will find something. And I'll never forget it. Was actually Wayne Dyer, probably 20 years ago, said one of the ways to change that, because naturally we tend to find the negative. Hair's out of place, clothes doesn't work. Oh, all those tattoos, all that body language, jewelry, we tend to go to the negative. So it's fun sometimes, again, when we start flying again, to sit in an airport as people are coming off the airplane. And after you've been on the airplane for 4 hours and cramped in, you're probably not your prettiest and best. But if you can sit on the outside lobby, wait before you go in, watching everybody come out, find something nice about everybody coming off that airplane. Find something positive and think something positive that person can do wonders for changing your response. And when any time you're in with somebody and you're introduced to somebody that you're not sure you're going to agree with philosophically, but if you find something nice, maybe they have wings growing out their back. Maybe they've got a Mickey Mouse hat on their head and that you can laugh and enjoy about. So get rid of that tension. That helps you get rid of any negative tension. But find something nice you like about it. I did, at one point, small thing. When you meet new people, to me, we've all heard the handshake is important, but recognize in a handshake, your emotion is right here in the center. And so when you do a handshake, you connect in the skin, inside the skin. Make sure you connect. And then gently wrap, and again, mirror and match their tension. Don't be the fish, but don't overgrip, but match their tension. But make sure you have that connection. This is where the soul is. And you can try it with somebody else and shake their hands and just make sure you make that connection to realize how much how valuable that feels. Again, recognizing that the value of that 2-second pause, the strongest way to get anybody to like you is ask questions. Show an interest. Ask questions. We don't ask enough questions. We teach, we tell, we talk, say, ask more questions. We don't. I've trained trainers for years, and they all agree. The most important thing of any facilitator is to ask questions. Then I go out and hear them wanting to jump in. Keep it in mind, when you really, truly do it, 2 seconds becomes a long time. But I want a trainer to stand quiet for 15 to 30 seconds, to listen, to let others respond and develop, because we don't always respond the same. I said we have the visual people that act very quickly. We have the auditory people that act medium. We have the kinesthetic who tend to move at the slower pace. Not one of them right or wrong. But again, that's that importance. And 2 seconds will feel like a huge length of time. It isn't. Learn to ask more questions. So recognize the brain does not always function the way we would like to. One of the best classes on DEI, diversity and inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion, talks about the microaggressions. A lady of color walks into a room and has to be very conscious immediately what response is going to be. The lady of color also, somebody comes to the door, they open the door, she's there, and all of a sudden you see this blank look in their face. What are our microaggressions? Do we have microaggressions on people's style, people's attire, tattoos? What are our microaggressions? Be aware of that. So, using the presence, be present, convince people that you are there 100% for them. The power is stand as if you're the 5-star general. Be comfortable in that body language. Be aware. Have your shoulders back where they belong. And now you have to work. At 81 years, I have to work to keep them back there. But it makes a difference. One way, it's, if we want to know how close we are to the 5-star general, just stand relaxed, completely relaxed, and look where your hands are. Do your hands face in as they do as we age, or do they face out as they did when we were very young? That's showing the chronological age, and it's showing how close to the 5-star general we are. Watch our body language. And warmth. The best way to show you care is to care. The formula is RFD2L. Just relax, focus, and have a desire to learn. That's pretty much what I have to present today. I'd be more than happy to take questions, any discussions.
Just unmute and ask their question. I guess the one I was thinking about when you said to pause for 2 seconds, I just wondered if I kept pausing for 2 seconds, repetitively, does the other person get a little annoyed that I'm not responding to them? I mean, that was my quirk. I really appreciate what you said, that, you're with them more when you respond. I feel I'm with them more when I respond in 2 seconds. So
what you said is huge. Why would you be concerned about the pause of the 2 seconds? And this is real. This is true. This is what all of us will have. Again, we communicate by habit. And we're stepping out of our habit. And anytime you step out of your habit, there's a discomfort zone. It is not easy. I'm still working on it. Sometimes I'm good at it. Many times I'm not. I have seen the value of it, the difference it makes. And yes, 2 seconds feels like a long time.
Well, I felt it when you had the 2 seconds. I mean, I really felt the difference. I could, yeah, okay, I see that. The other one is looking at the eyes. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
We're maintaining eye contact, we're maintaining body connection. I acknowledge what you've said. Gary, that was huge. Thank you.
And I like the left and the right eye. Which one am I going to focus on? And yeah.
That's a secret little trick I don't tell everybody, but you paid so much I thought I'd share.
Well, I mean,
Jim, I have a question for you. Do you see a change based on not social media, just technology? Our rampant communication with technology, has that changed how we interact, just lack of practice in actual human connections?
Is it Deanna?
Nancy.
Nancy. Oh, sorry. Oh, Nancy, that's huge. That's huge. Not in a positive way. We are living in a time of sound bites. We are living in a time of interruptions. We are living in a time of communicating via text without proper grammar. That's not a positive way. We are missing that emotional connection, which makes these skills all the more valuable and will make you stand out all the more importantly.
Jim,
Nancy?
one thing I was thinking about with that 2 seconds is sometimes I catch myself when I'm having somebody talking to me, not really focusing on what they're saying, but thinking what I'm going to say next. And I think that 2-second thing, it kind of breaks that cycle where you listen to them, then you wait the 2 seconds, and maybe your answer even is different than it would have been if you were just trying to jump right in.
Those of us that have meditated a lot are better than this, are better at this. But Nancy, you're talking about all of us, quite frankly. And these are the things that I've had to work at and overcome. And I'm far better than I was. I've also had the opportunity to see the power of it. So keep up the good work. And Donald.
I watch Fox News. Don't hate me for doing that.
No.
But I cannot stand Laura Ingram because she will, a question is out there before the person even gets to the half answering it, she's on to something else. And I hate that. Let the person look at you and say, yeah, or yes, I'm going to answer that question. Just take that 2 seconds. I love it. But newscast, you never get that.
Donald, and sometimes I watch MSNBC by mistake.
I don't hate you for that.
They do the same damn thing.
Yeah. I don't understand it. I mean, what it shows is they don't care. They don't give a damn what you got to say.
It's about
they're going to get their words in, and then
about the money.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Well, Jim, I want to appreciate your input because I'm thinking back now. I've been doing presentations for 40 years going, how did I survive? Why didn't I turn into a, bowl full of jelly, making presentations before churches and church boards and congregations and city councils. And then I'm going, how did I ever do it? So now you're going to make me think too much about it. So I'd like to, wish I could find videotapes of myself and see, did I learn it by just naturally doing it? Or was I really bad at it? So it's kind of interesting.
You got to walk in as a 5-star general.
Yeah.
Take a few seconds, just observe.
Well, yeah, as being an architect, if you walk into a presentation, if you're not sold on what you're going to sell your clients,
perfect.
They're going to eat you alive, and you'll never get a building built or anything. So I think that's probably how I survived, was the fact that I was sold on what I was selling. So I apparently was a good enough salesman to get through then.
But as we walk into an environment, any kind of an audience at all, again, we're living in that automatic, we're chattering away, there's things going on in the background. Are you standing in front of a window? There's 1,000 reasons people won't be fully there. And that's that pause of 2 seconds in any kind of environment and just look at the audience and can make that eye connection. I'm now 3 to 4 seconds and people are wondering, but the energy it brings everybody right into the room. And you're standing now like the 5-star general. Oh my God, the world is yours.
MJ,
Jim,
I'm wondering.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was wondering, you go to so many different clubs. Are you going to use some of this, the 2 seconds?
Oh, in public speaking, I'm very good at it. And now I'm much longer than 2 seconds in public speaking. I am working on day-to-day one-on-one. I am much, much better.
I was asking MJ about her going to different clubs, and she's going to use some of these ideas. So,
Well, absolutely, and I think I'm sort of like you, Gary. I get nervous. judgment. And so like if I pause for 2 seconds, I'm thinking that, oh, they're going to think that I don't know what I'm doing or what,
Oh,
that I don't know what to say. So there's all kinds of head trash going on in my mind, that I'm sure you're thinking energy and building energy. And I'm thinking, oh, Lord, they think I've forgotten what I was going to say.
you live by habit,
So,
but you are introduced, you turn around and thank the introducee. Then you walk out in front of the audience and you stand there and you feel the floor, feel your feet in the floor. And of course, you've done the little exercises prior to get rid of all your tension. You walk out of the floor, you've got a powerful opening. And that 2 seconds, you will be amazed what can happen.
yeah, I really do like some of the stuff that you've shared with us. And I'm in the outdoor advertising business, and we do a sales training, sales training. And Sandler talks about matching and mirroring and, good listening skills. So a lot of this stuff is kind of making that connection between, what I'm learning in the sales world plus what you're saying here. So I think that's very cool.
I was just going to run over and pick up my David Sandler book that shows you can't teach a person how to play a piano in a classroom.
Right. Yep.
I was
that's
a
exactly
Sandler.
it.
I was Sandler for years. Small world.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Any other questions?
You mentioned Amy Cuddy. Is there a specific book that she's written that you would recommend?
Yes, there is. And no, I won't.
Oh,
I'll tell you why. I'm going to give you the spelling of that because she has a YouTube, or not a YouTube, a TED Talk that for years it was the #1 or #2 watched TED Talk of all times. And Amy Cuddy, spelled with D's. And all of you, you'll enjoy it. You'll laugh, you'll cry. It's powerful, 20-minute. And the reason I say no to the book, it was so good, I went out and bought the book. The book is nowhere near what the YouTube. Everything is in the YouTube. It's more powerful. Because of the extreme popularity of the TED Talk, everybody said, you got to write it in a book. Well, she had to write the book, and the book just to me didn't. Everything is in that 20-minute. It's great.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you so much. These have been 2 great presentations. We've had a lot of positive feedback, and I really appreciate your time. And thank you just so much. Hey, Jim, did you want to say anything about the music piece? I can't think of it right now with our.
Concert for Peace.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't. Oh. You mean this?
There we go. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, how long do I have? Heavens, yes.
Well, we have a few more minutes, so
Right.
go ahead. It's
Right.
only 6:11, so.
There is a committee of Rotarians a committee made up of Rotarians from virtually around the world. Gary is involved in it. We have people from Hong Kong, which is very active in Rotary. The district governor is always in Hong Kong. They have two clubs. Mongolia has gobs of clubs, but we have there in Turkey, in Argentina, we have quite a committee of Rotarians around the world that decided to want to put a music concert together, focused around the work of Kareem Wasfi. Kareem Wasfi was made famous in April a year ago. Kareem Wasfi is, first of all, the conductor of the Iraqi National Symphony Orchestra. He also is a virtuoso cellist. And April a year ago, he took his cello in the middle of a bombed out area where there was a 3-car bombed area in Baghdad. And he took a cello and sat in the middle of that area and started to play. Others gathered around. Other musicians began to come and join him in play. In that time, 14 soldiers walked over, handed them their gun, and said, "Would you teach me how to play music?" Since then, he started at least six, well, not at least, he's six youth orchestras. So he's running all over the area teaching kids and others. He has others now helping him, teaching kids how to play music. Keeping in mind that's an underemployed area. Kids are active and they're attracted to the gun world. So him keeping those kids off the street and playing music is just a phenomenal program that we want to support. So our Concert for Peace is largely about supporting his works. He also has since built his own foundation. It will also help support some other of the Rotary Peace programs, Rotary International Peace programs, and help support the Rotary Action Group for Peace. We have musicians involved. Again, the orchestra conductor of the Sydney Opera is a virtuoso violinist. He's going to be playing a piece for that. We have the gentleman, Phoebus Chan from Hong Kong, phenomenal pianist, will be playing. Cihat Oskan is this virtual violinist educator in all of Europe from Turkey that will be performing. Quite a few things from Kareem Wasfi. Meanwhile, plus the Valdosta Symphony Orchestra in Valdosta, Georgia, and the Littleton Symphony Orchestra in Colorado will have music. So it's going to be quite a mixture. And there's something in there for everybody. And in this, there will be an overarching story of the value of peace rather than war, and music to help build peace.
Great, thanks. Okay, for everyone, this has been recorded, so if anybody says they couldn't get on, please share that. Go ahead, Jim.
Just 2 more seconds. The concert dates will be September 18th, and that date is the Saturday prior to the United Nations Day of Peace, which is the 21st, always the 21st. But we are going to perform this twice on September 18th, and twice at the chart is 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. London time. I'm going to put in the chat for everybody the website to go to learn much more. And because we have a website up and you can register. The concerts, both of them, will be free. Though, if you want to drop a couple of bucks as a donation, we will be more than happy to accept that.
And I'm sure Tom Carlisi will be sending this information out to everybody in the district. So
He will be very soon.
yes,
But
right.
there's the website. You can go on the website, shapingpeacethroughmusic.org. And you'll learn more about Kareem. You'll learn more about the program and the times. The nice thing about, though, the times are a little strange, when you put in when you want to go, when you register, the time will automatically come into you on your time, which will be UTC, whatever, but it will be on your time automatically. So you don't have to think about it. But for you, it will be 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. on Saturday, September 18th.
Thanks.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay, thank you so much for presenting this. This has been recorded, so if anybody says that they had a hard time getting on and they didn't experience it, we will have it for recording. Number 2 is we will not having any, we won't be having a masterclass next month. We're going to go to every 2, and our next one will be October. And I think we're going to try to present this generation differences within the clubs. And this was one of the things that it seems like there's always there at every club. So we wanted to see if we couldn't share some thoughts on that. And that'll be October, the 2nd Tuesday of the month at 5 o'clock. Thank you all for persevering and staying on. And we will see you in 2 months.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you,
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Gary.
Hey, Jim,
Thank
before you
you.
go off, can I ask you a question?
Certainly, Donald.
Well, I used to give a lot of financial seminars. I'm a retired financial planner,
Yes.
and I sold stocks and all that. And when I first started giving the seminars, my biggest fear was going into a room and people in there knowing more than I did.
Mhm.
I'm the teacher, and yet I feared that. How do you handle that when you go into a room and you know there's people sitting there in the audience that probably know more about your subject matter than you do?
As I said, Albert Einstein suffered from that same issue, as all of us in reality do to some extent. When you watch actors, famous actors on Johnny Carson or Late Night Show, you know, half of them can't even stare you in the face. What you're dealing with is common to all of us, Donald. And what you do is very simply the same thing. Again, the brain does not know the difference between reality and fake. So you fake it until you become it. You say to yourself, stop. I know this material. I have a lot to offer. The other thing, of course, you are going to show good presence. You are going to show warmth. You're going to look very powerful, but you're going to be accessible. And that's one of the biggest challenges that you had as a beginning salesman. I say that because that's typical of all beginning salesmen. Early on, we have to be the guru. So it's getting rid of that need to be the guru. These are the things. And the first thing you do is want to learn their issues. And so you ask questions. And then by your leading questions, you lead them. Well, have you thought about this? What do you think about this? They begin to see how smart you are. So you don't come in as the guru, which we all want to be.
Okay.
You come in and say, tell me about your situation. Tell me about what's going on, and become the friend. And then you start sharing through questions.
There you go. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that.
But again, think yourself smart and know that then you become smart. It's just that simple.
Oh, I've tried. All right. I'll see you later. Thanks for your presentation.
You're welcome, Donald. Thank you.
It was great.
Okay. Thanks, Jim.
All right. We'll see you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.